I still remember the sound of my mother's voice that night. Measured. Almost bored. She didn't raise her tone or soften the blow. She just looked across the dinner table and said, "We used your college savings to help your sister with her treatments." No apology. No hesitation. Just a clean announcement dropped between the mashed potatoes and the salad. Lauren grinned like it was some sweet family secret I'd eventually learn to cherish. "One day you'll understand," she added, as if that line erased everything she'd taken. My father didn't join the conversation. He kept nudging the forks on the table, pretending he heard nothing. It was the kind of silence he'd practiced for years. The kind he used whenever Lauren was involved. The room felt like it tilted, but I didn't let myself react. I set my glass down carefully and said one word I didn't expect to hear come out of my own mouth. Refund. That single word cut something open in the room. You could almost hear the split. Every favor, every excuse, every hidden decision, they all rushed to the surface at once. Before I go further, you should know who I am. I'm Camila, and for most of my life I believed the quiet suburb we lived in could protect us from anything. It was the kind of neighborhood with trimmed hedges, friendly waves from driveways, and the illusion that nothing ugly ever happened behind closed doors. But illusions crack if you stare long enough. In my family, the cracks always started with Lauren. She's 10 years older than me and has been the star of every story since the day she was born. Her trophies filled shelves. Her photos covered walls. Every plan, every sacrifice, every moment somehow revolved around her. I grew up in her shadow without even realizing it. "Let your sister go first. You're young, you'll get your turn. Just wait, sweetheart." Those lines built the rhythm of my childhood. After a while, I learned to step aside before anyone needed to say it. My parents called it harmony. Called it disappearing. By the time I finished high school, the one thing that was supposed to belong to me, truly mine, was my college fund. They talked about it for years. They told me they started saving when I was still learning to walk. They promised it was locked away, untouched, safe. I held on to that promise the way some people hold on to a lifeline. But a promise is only good until someone decides it isn't. What happened after that dinner didn't just expose their decision, it exposed every secret they hoped I'd never discover. That night I didn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every second of that dinner like a bad recording stuck on loop. The way my mother spoke so casually. The way Lauren smirked like she'd earned something. The way my dad folded into himself and stayed quiet, just like always. Their voices blended into a single sentence that kept circling in my mind. "We used your college savings for your sister." By morning, I tried convincing myself maybe it wasn't as extreme as it sounded. Maybe there was something left. Maybe they hadn't drained everything. Maybe there was a misunderstanding somewhere that could still be fixed. So on my lunch break, sitting at a metal desk in the tiny office where I worked, I opened my online banking. I expected to see something, anything left. Few hundred. Few thousand. A number that showed they at least tried to leave me something. But the screen loaded with a balance that punched the air out of my chest. Zero. Completely empty. Not a cent. Before I could even process that, another alert showed up on the screen. A hit on my credit score. Sharp drop. And beneath it, a loan I had never applied for. Never signed for. Never even heard of. For a moment my hands went numb. Someone had used my personal information. Someone had taken out a loan in my name. Someone had done it confidently, quietly, like they assumed I'd never check. The betrayal wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was calculated. That evening, I stood in the kitchen doorway while my mom folded dish towels. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Did you or Dad open anything under my name?" She didn't flinch. She didn't even look surprised. "Camila, stop overreacting. We did what we needed to do for your sister." My stomach tightened. "So you did take out a loan?" She waved her hand like I was a child pushing back on bedtime. "You're young. You'll recover. Your sister needed help." Lauren walked in right then, holding a mug she wasn't even drinking from. "Oh, don't make this dramatic," she said. You can always start over. This was important. Important. My future wasn't important. Their comfort was. Standing in that kitchen, something inside me shifted. It wasn't loud or angry. It was steady, cold, certain. If I didn't do something now, this wouldn't be the last thing they'd take. But I had no idea that what I uncovered next would make the missing college fund feel small in comparison. The next few days passed in a haze. I went to work, answered emails, joined meetings, but my mind kept circling back to the zero in that account and the loan tied to my name. Every time I tried to focus, the same thought crept in. If they did this once, what stopped them from doing more? By Thursday, I forced myself to sit down and pull everything together. I spread out bank statements, pay stubs, and anything with my name on it across my small kitchen table. It looked like a crime scene. The deeper I dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a one-time choice. It was a pattern. Payment trails that lined up in perfect order. Withdrawals tucked neatly between Lauren's treatment dates. A signature on a document I had never seen, written so neatly it almost felt practiced. Someone had used information only a family member would have easy access to. I thought back to every moment I handed my mother my mail because she said she'd sort it for me. Every time my dad asked for my details at tax season. Every casual request I never thought twice about. Trust handed over in pieces. My chest tightened. I stepped outside to breathe, walking aimlessly until the tightness in my ribs loosened a little. When I finally got home, I knew I couldn't pretend this would fix itself. The next morning I showed Jade the loan entry on my credit report. She looked at me with a mix of disbelief and anger on my behalf. "Camila, this isn't a mistake," she said. "I know." Her words pushed me from shock into resolve. I wasn't going to let this fall into silence like everything else. That evening, I drove to my parents' house. They barely looked up when I walked into the living room. Lauren curled on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing in the world could possibly concern her. Mom was folding laundry. Dad stood nearby, pretending to check the thermostat. I placed a folder on the coffee table. "What's this?" "Mass. Proof," I said. My voice came out calm, steady in a way that surprised even me. "Of everything done with my name and without my permission." Lauren rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. "Seriously? You're being dramatic." "No," I said. "For once, I'm being exact." Their silence told me more than their excuses ever had. But confronting them at home was only the beginning. What happened the next day, in a place none of us expected, changed everything. I didn't sleep much after leaving their house. Every word from that conversation played back in my mind, but not with confusion anymore. With clarity. They'd done this because they assumed I would swallow it. Because that was my role in the family. The one who adjusts, the one who waits, the one who doesn't make trouble. But that role wasn't mine anymore. The next afternoon, clouds hung low over the city. The air had that stillness before rain when everything feels slightly muted. I sat in my car outside the fertility clinic, watching people come and go through the glass doors. My family arrived one by one, each of them carrying a different version of unease. Lauren showed up first, dressed like she was walking into a boardroom. She carried confidence the way some people carry purses, always in hand, always visible. Her husband, Mark, followed behind her, shoulders slumped as though he was bracing for something. Mom and Dad arrived last. They didn't walk together, but they moved as if tethered by the same heavy secret. Inside, the clinic lobby smelled faintly of disinfectant and lavender. "Too clean. Too come." A nurse led us to a private room with soft lighting and a round table meant for conversation. The space felt painfully small for the storm brewing between us. Lauren sat with her arms crossed. "I still don't know why we're here," she muttered. "You will," I said. Before she could fire back, the door opened. Dr. Patel stepped inside with the same steady presence she'd had the first time I met her. Her voice carried calm authority, the kind that makes people sit straighter without thinking. "Thank you all for coming," she said. "I understand there's confusion about the decisions made during treatment." Confusion. Lauren snapped. This is ridiculous. The doctor didn't flinch. Let's start with facts. She looked at Lauren first. When you came to us, we discussed your screenings. You were in good health. The difficulties conceiving were not caused by you. The room froze. Mumbling. Dead shifted. Mark looked like someone had pulled the last bit of air from his lungs. Lauren's voice cracked. That's private. Dr. Patel nodded gently. I'm not sharing anything you didn't already acknowledge in prior sessions. I am clarifying because these choices affected your entire family. The truth sat in the center of the room like a weight no one could lift. The college fund wasn't used out of necessity. It wasn't sacrifice. It was image. It was pride. It was a secret wrapped in money that wasn't theirs to spend. But the moment Lauren's lie unraveled was nothing compared to what came next when the financial truth landed harder than any of us expected. For a few seconds after Dr. Patel spoke, no one moved. The truth didn't just land, it echoed. You could see it hit each of them differently. My mother's face drained of color. My father's shoulders slumped as if he'd finally run out of excuses to hide behind. Mark looked away, ashamed yet relieved to have the burden spoken aloud by someone other than him. But Lauren, she looked furious. Not embarrassed. Not sorry. Furious. Why would you even say that? She snapped at the doctor. Because honesty matters, Dr. Patel replied. Especially when the choices made involved someone else's future. Lauren's jaw clenched. I just wanted a child. You wanted control, I said quietly. And you took it from me. Her eyes flashed. Don't pretend you wouldn't have helped. Mom said you could wait. You always wait. That line told me everything I needed to know. To her, my life wasn't a priority, just a cushion. Backup resource. A convenient place to pull from whenever her world needed smoothing. I placed the folder of documents on the table again, opening it this time so the pages fanned across the surface. These are the payments tied to my name. The withdrawals. The loan. All the things you used without asking. Mom reached for the papers with trembling fingers. Camila, we'll fix it. We'll handle the loan. I know, I said. Because I'm not carrying it anymore. My father swallowed hard, staring at the statements like they belonged to strangers. We never meant to hurt you. You didn't think about hurting me, I replied. You didn't think about me at all. The room went still. For the first time, I felt something shift inside me, a quiet strength that had been buried under years of being the easy one. I sat up straighter, breathed steadier, and spoke clearly. From today on, every debt with my name gets handled legally. Every financial tie between us ends here. Every boundary I never enforced before. It's in place now. Lauren scoffed. So what, you're done with us? No, I said. I'm finally done disappearing. There was no shouting. No dramatic exit. Just a slow understanding settling in the room. The dynamic they'd relied on for years had ended. When I stood to leave, my mom reached for my arm. Camila, please, I gently stepped back. You took my future like it was spare change. I'm taking it back. Walking out of that clinic felt like stepping into clean air after years in a windowless room. For once, the silence didn't feel heavy. Felt like freedom. But what happened in the weeks after that, when everyone had to face the fallout, changed all of our lives in ways none of us expected. The fallout didn't hit all at once. It settled slowly, like dust drifting through sunlight after something heavy collapses. There were no screaming matches or late-night confrontations. Just silence. A different kind, one built from consequences finally catching up. Lauren called me the next morning. I let it ring. Mom tried twice. Both went straight to voicemail. Dad sent a short text. We're taking care of the loan. It wasn't an apology, but it was the first real acknowledgement of what they'd done. Mark reached out too, though his message felt different. I'm sorry for my part in this. I should have spoken up sooner. He didn't defend himself. He didn't defend Lauren. He just told the truth, and that honesty hit harder than anything else that week. Meanwhile, Lauren's world didn't glide along as smoothly as she expected. Without my college fund propping up more treatments, the financial pressure shifted directly onto her. The glossy updates she used to post disappeared. The cheerful photos, the inspirational quotes, the trying again captions gone. Mom grew quieter. She walked on verbal eggshells, choosing words more carefully than I'd ever seen. It was strange watching her finally recognize the weight of something too late to fix. I moved into a small apartment closer to downtown. The place wasn't fancy. The floors were scratched, the walls thin, and the windows rattled when the wind picked up. But the morning sun stretched across my bed in long warm stripes, and that alone made it feel like mine. I bought a cheap desk, set it by the window, and spent evenings rewriting my college application essays. Every paragraph felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that had been buried under guilt and expectation. One evening, Jade stopped by with takeout. "You look lighter," she said, handing me chopsticks. "I feel lighter," I admitted. And I did. The ache was still there, but it wasn't hollow anymore. It wasn't the ache of being used or ignored. It was the ache that comes with growing uncomfortable but necessary. The night I finally hit submit on my first application, a calm certainty washed over me. I wasn't waiting for permission anymore. I wasn't the extra piece in someone else's story. I was building something of my own. But one last message from my mom, unexpected, quiet, almost hesitant, made me realize the story wasn't fully finished yet. Mom didn't text for several days after the clinic. Then one night, just as I was shutting my laptop, her name flashed across my phone. For a moment I considered ignoring it. But something in me needed to hear what she would say. The message wasn't long. "Can we talk? Not about the money. About us." I stared at it for a long time. It felt strange, like she'd finally realized the damage wasn't in the numbers, but in the quiet choices she'd made over years. I didn't respond right away. I let myself think first, really think, without guilt or obligation tugging at me. The next afternoon, we met at a small cafe halfway between my place and hers. She looked smaller somehow. Softer. Not defeated, just aware. When she sat down, she didn't reach for my hands like she usually did. "Camila," she started gently, "I should have protected you." I didn't interrupt. I wanted to hear all of it. "I thought I was keeping peace," she continued. "I thought helping Lauren was helping the family. I never realized how often that meant choosing her over you." Her voice cracked on the last word. I let her words settle. They didn't erase anything, but they mattered. Not because they fixed the past, but because they acknowledged it. "You didn't choose her over me," I said quietly. "You chose convenience. You chose silence. And you assumed I wouldn't notice." She nodded slowly. "You're right." It was the first time she'd said those words to me about anything. We talked for a long time. Not about the loan or the fund or the clinic. We talked about patterns, expectations, the way a family can accidentally teach a child to shrink themselves without ever saying it out loud. When we finally stood to leave, she hugged me, not out of guilt, but out of recognition. "I'm trying," she whispered. "I know," I said. I walked out of the cafe with a feeling I didn't expect: peace. Not the false peace that comes from avoiding conflict. Real one. The kind that grows when you stop carrying what was never yours to hold. In the weeks that followed, things didn't magically repair. Some relationships stayed distant. Some softened. Some changed shape entirely. But for the first time in my life, none of it felt like my responsibility to fix. Because the day I said refund, I wasn't asking for money. I was asking for my life back. And this time I kept it.